a woman slips beneath the surface, clinging to a weighted sled, descending into absolute darkness, 171 meters down, into a void that crushes the human body. She's chasing a world record, the deepest free dive ever attempted by a woman. She reaches the bottom, she hits the target depth, and then the system meant to pull her back up doesn't work. Her only line of safety, a tank of air, the thing that should have brought her home, is empty. And the man who checked it, the man responsible for her life, was also her husband, the man who claimed to love her. This is the story of Audrey Mestre, and what happened in those 9 minutes underwater changes, depending on who you ask. August 11th, 1974, Saint-Denis, France. A baby girl is born who, according to everyone who knew her, seemed to belong more to the water than to the land. At 2 years old, Audrey Mestre wins a swimming competition. By 13, she's already a seasoned scuba diver, exploring depths that would terrify most adults. Her family lives for the ocean, snorkeling, diving, chasing that strange gravity that only exists underwater. But Audrey has scoliosis. On land, her spine curves, her body betrays her. Underwater, she's free. And for Audrey, that freedom becomes everything. Her family moves to Mexico City. She learns Spanish. She studies marine biology at University in La Paz, focusing on something most people have never heard of, the physiology of free diving. Not scuba diving, where you carry air on your back. Free diving, where you take one breath at the surface and see how far down you can go before your body demands you return. It's a sport that lives on the edge of human capability, and Audrey wants to understand it, scientifically, academically. She wants to know what happens to the human body when it's pushed into the crushing pressure of the deep. So in 1996, she seeks out the best, the legend, the undisputed master. His name is Francisco Ferreras, but everyone calls him Pipin. Pipin is Cuban, charismatic, magnetic. He holds multiple world records in free diving, and when Audrey meets him, she's there as a researcher, a marine biologist studying the limits of human endurance. But something else happens. A passionate romance blooms almost immediately. She moves to Miami to be with him. The scientist becomes the student. The student becomes the athlete. And Pipin, world champion, aging legend, becomes her husband, her coach, and the man in charge of keeping her alive. They will marry in 1999. Free diving's power couple, bonded by what Pipin himself would later call a unique and complicated tale of love and obsession. And Audrey, she's a natural, unnaturally natural. 1997, her first competitive dive, 80 meters, deep enough to make your ears scream. 1998, 115 meters, a world record, 2,125 meters. Another record, 2001, 130 meters straight down on a single breath. She's now one of the deepest human beings on the planet. But here's the thing about records. They don't stay yours for long. August 17th, 2002. A British Caymanian diver named Tanya Streeter descends to 160 meters. It's the deepest anyone, man or woman, has ever gone in the no-limits discipline. Tanya Streeter is now the record holder for everyone. And back in Miami, Pipin sees it, and something shifts. Because Pipin is no longer diving. His body's breaking down. The physical cost of plunging into the abyss again and again, it's caught up with him. He's retired, essentially, forced out by his own limits. But his wife is still in her prime. And now, someone else holds the crown. So Pipin makes a proposal. Audrey should go deeper than anyone. 171 meters, 11 meters beyond the current record. A massive leap in a sport where every meter matters. It's aggressive, it's ambitious, and the timeline, less than 8 weeks. Let's be clear about what no-limits freediving actually is. You don't swim down, you ride. You cling to a weighted sled, 200 pounds of metal, that drags you into the void faster than you could ever swim. 60, 70, 80 meters per minute. The pressure builds. Your lungs compress to the size of fists. Your heart slows. Your body begins to shut down non-essential systems to keep you conscious. At 171 meters, the pressure is crushing. Imagine an NFL linebacker standing on every square inch of your body. That's what Audrey would be enduring. And to come back up, you don't swim. You can't. You'd never make it. You inflate a lift bag with compressed air, and it rockets you back to the surface. 3 minutes in total, down and up. That was the theory. But theory doesn't account for human error or intent. October 4th, 2002, Bahia Hibe, Dominican Republic. Audrey completes a practice dive to 166 meters, 5 meters short of the target, but deep enough to prove her body can handle it. She surfaces, she's fine, she's ready. 8 days later, they go for the record. October 12th. The morning is clear. The water is calm. The dive site is set up offshore, organized by the International Association of Freedivers, the IAFD. Here's something you need to know. The IAFD isn't like AIDA. AIDA is the official governing body with strict safety protocols, independent observers, mandatory medical staff. The IAFD, it was created by Pipin to rival AIDA. It's his organization, which means this record attempt, it's being supervised by the man who stands to benefit from it, and the man responsible for Audrey's safety is also her husband. The setup is bare bones, underfunded. There are too few safety divers. No doctors on the boat, no doctors on shore. The rescue equipment is insufficient, but they're going anyway. Audrey slips into the water. She takes her breaths, deep, controlled, flooding her bloodstream with oxygen. She signals, she grips the sled, and she drops. 1 minute, 42 seconds later, she reaches the bottom, 171 meters, the record depth. She's done it. Now, all she has to do is come home. She reaches for the valve to release compressed air into the lift bag. She twists it. Nothing happens. She tries again. Still nothing. The sled doesn't rise. The bag doesn't inflate. Because the air tank, the one piece of equipment that will bring her back to the surface, is empty. At depth, panic kills faster than anything else. Your oxygen is already gone. Your body is screaming. And now, you're stranded at the bottom of the ocean with no way up. A rescue diver eventually reaches her. He inflates the bag with his own air, but it's not enough. The ascent is slow, agonizingly slow. Somewhere around 120 meters, Audrey blacks out. Pipin, watching from above, realizes something is wrong. He grabs scuba gear and descends to retrieve her. 8 minutes and 40 seconds after she left the surface, they bring Audrey Mestre's body back up. She's foaming at the mouth, but she still has a pulse. They try to revive her in the water on the boat. They rush her to a hospital on shore, but there are no doctors, no real revival equipment. And by the time they reach hospital for help, it's too late. Audrey Mestre is pronounced dead. The official cause, drowning. Now, here's where the story fractures. The IAFD, Pipin's organization, releases a report. The conclusion? Accidental death, equipment failure. A tragedy, but not anyone's fault. But the free diving community, they're outraged. The dive didn't meet basic safety standards. It was rushed, underfunded, understaffed, and the most damning detail, the air tank was empty. And the person responsible for checking it, the person who carried out the final equipment checks, was Pipin. He was the dive supervisor. He was in charge of that tank. And according to multiple sources, he didn't use a pressure gauge to verify it had air. Worse, he reportedly didn't allow anyone else on the team to check it either. So the question becomes, how does a world-class freediver married to a world-class coach end up at the bottom of the ocean with an empty air tank? 2004, Pipin publishes a memoir. It's called The Dive, a story of love and obsession. In it, he frames Audrey's death as a haunting tragedy, a tale of two people who loved each other and the ocean too much. He calls himself a complex and haunted man who lost his soulmate. He addresses the controversy, but he deflects. He blames other things. A thin cable, stormy weather, a damaged bushing on the sled, the camera, technical failures beyond his control. What he doesn't mention, the empty air tank, his failure to check it. 2006, a man named Carlos Serra publishes a book. It's called The Last Attempt. Carlos wasn't a journalist. He was Pipin's former business partner, and he was a close friend, like a brother, to Audrey. After her death, Carlos started asking questions. He wanted an investigation to determine who was responsible. Pipin refused, so Carlos launched his own investigation. And what he found, he turned into a book. The conclusion? Carlos squarely blamed Pipin for Audrey's death. But the book goes further. It alleges that it wasn't just negligence. It suggests something darker, that Pipin was abusive, that Audrey was threatening to leave him, that he had a new girlfriend, and that he deliberately didn't fill the air tank. The word that appears in summaries of the book, though never tested in court, is murder. What happened after the dive made everything even darker. He didn't act like a grieving husband. He acted like a man cleaning up a mess. He pushed to have her body cremated, fast. The official autopsy was brief, ruling it a simple drowning. And with her cremation, any chance for a second, independent investigation was gone. Authorities accepted it as a tragic accident, and that was it. Exactly 1 year later, he went back into the ocean, the same location, the same dive, only this time with full media coverage, cameras, lights, sponsors. He called it a tribute, but a tribute to who? her or himself. He descended into the same abyss that took her life. He descended to 170 meters, 1 meter short of her goal. And this time, everything worked perfectly. The lift balloon inflated, the line held. The system was flawless. He came up through the same waters that had swallowed his wife, but this time, he surfaced to applause. It was a successful dive. He claimed a new record for himself. Some saw a man honoring love, but her friends and much of the freediving world saw something else. They saw the story of a man who couldn't stand being outshined, a man whose ego might have cost his wife her life. Afterward, he wrote a book, a memoir that painted himself as the tragic hero, the man broken by love and fate. But to many, it read like a defense, not grief. However, nothing criminal was ever proven. There was no real police investigation. Authorities accepted it as a tragic equipment failure. But divers and journalists still whisper another truth, that this wasn't an accident. It was a preventable death, a failure so basic, it feels intentional, maybe even manslaughter. And if that's true, what kind of person does that? Did he plan it? Did he think she'll die breaking a world record? I'll claim the legacy, the fame, the story, the book, the money? It sounds insane, but people have done worse for less. And imagine being Audrey. You're 171 meters down, the pressure crushing your chest. You hit your mark. You just broke the world record. You're ready to come back. You reach for the air that's supposed to save you, but nothing happens. No hiss, no lift, just silence. And the ocean pressing in. And the thought, he checked this tank. If that's true, it's a monstrous act. But of course, we'll never know. So what do we believe? On one hand, there's the argument for autonomy. Audrey Mestre wasn't some naive victim. She was an elite athlete, a marine biologist, a woman who understood the risks better than almost anyone on Earth. She set 3 world records. She made her own choices. And in a sport this dangerous, the athlete is ultimately responsible. Maybe she trusted the wrong person. Maybe love made her blind. But she was a willing participant. On the other hand, there's the argument for control. Pipin wasn't just her husband. He was her coach, her supervisor, the person in charge of her equipment, the organizer of the event. He held every role that mattered, and he failed in the most basic, inexcusable way. He didn't check the air tank, and he didn't let anyone else check it either. Was it negligence? The kind of catastrophic oversight that happens when ego and overconfidence replace protocol? Or was it something worse? We can argue forever about blame, but the ocean doesn't care. All it remembers is what it took. Audrey Mestre was posthumously inducted into the Women Divers Hall of Fame in 2002. Her story has been told in documentaries, books, and films. She's remembered as one of the greatest free divers in history, but her legacy is also a warning about the cost of ambition, about what happens when love and obsession blur into something toxic, about the danger of placing absolute trust in someone who holds absolute power over your life. Because in the end, Audrey didn't die from pushing her limits. She died because someone else failed to protect her. Whether that failure was an accident or a choice, we may never truly know. What we do know is this: she took one breath at the surface and descended into the void, trusting that the man who loved her had done his job. And when she reached for the air that should have been there, the air that would have brought her home, there was nothing. And 9 minutes later, the ocean gave her back. But by then, it was already too late. So what do you believe? Was it an accident or something much, much darker? Let me hear your thoughts in the comments.